So, today we'll be sculpting a cat. Remember, lay down your work surface so you don't get all messy. We're going to be using air dry clay to sculpt a very simple cat sitting down. Remember, you can always add water to your clay if it's too dry. I'm using some old clay, so it's pretty dry. And remember, you may need to add more water even if it was a desirable consistency a minute ago because it dries over time. You stir by rolling out a little cylinder for the body, oval cylinder thing, to sit like this. That's how it's going to sit once it's finished. Remember, you should use small portions of clay so you have lots of clay for all the other stuff you need to make. And if you have trouble fusing a part, you can add some water. And be careful, if you press too hard on the paper, it can stick to it and pull on up the paper and stuff. So be careful with the paper. Now you need to make 4 little cylinders for the legs. Or you can make it one long cylinder and chop it up. But remember, it's difficult to roll if the clay is too dry. I'm sorry for the weight. This clay is just very dry. So you can roll it against a flat surface or in your hands. So flatten out one side diagonally like this. Make sure the length is tall enough to prop up the body. Add a little bit of water. And stick it on like this. And you need to make a second one just the same. If you're having trouble getting it to stand up, you can press the 2 legs together to make it stronger. And if you made one of the legs too thin, as long as the leg is still wet, you can just coat it with a bit more clay. But if the leg is already dry, there's basically no hope. You just have to live with one leg being slightly smaller than the other. Because if you do try and add it, it will make a big mess because the clay will crack. If you don't have enough time to finish the whole thing, finish up the limb you're in the middle of and then stop. Because you don't have enough time to make another limb. Just stop and do that next time because you don't want it to crack. You can make it separately and then glue it on. Don't be discouraged if it takes you a little bit to make it. So for these back legs, we're going to put a bend in them. And then we're going to add some water on here and stick it on. Here's a second view in case you didn't get a good view of the front legs. And don't be discouraged if the wet clay starts kind of cracking a little bit. It's just a bit dry. Your hat should look like this so far. And now we're going to make some little paws. We're going to make 4 tiny balls. Now we're going to flatten them a little bit in between our fingers and add them on. These will help your clay sculpture not tip over and make it look a little better. You can squeeze them into place. I'd recommend attaching them all together for strength. And now we're going to make another tube for the tail. Now you attach it onto the bottom part like this. And you can put it in any position you want. I'd recommend putting it against the ground. And it might droop when it dries, so keep that in mind. This clay takes a few days to dry, and that's way long enough for gravity to take hold and make it droop downward. So make sure that all your things are very stable. You may need to use props to hold them up. And next we're making the head. So we're going to roll a little ball and make 2 tiny ears by grabbing a little bit of clay and kind of squishing it into a triangle shape, and we'll attach that to the top of the head. Now you can squish the face into a muzzle, or if you don't have much extra room on the head, you can add an extra ball of clay. And now you're going to want to find something small like the tip of a gel pencil and poke in some little eyes. You can also, if you want to look a bit better, make tiny balls and put them in the eye. Or you can just leave them as dents, or if you're painting these, you can even just leave it blank. Now, you attach the head on, and this is probably the hardest part of the whole sculpture. You might want to grab a little bit of extra clay. Make sure this is real moist. And squish it along the joint. To connect them. And if you want, you can add a little pendant as a collar. Don't worry if a little bit falls off. Just grab some water and stick them back together. Once you've finished, you're going to want to let it dry for a little while undisturbed.